Hey guys, this is John from US Dash Camera. Today I got another review on a PAPAGO GoSafe 535 dash camera. So this is the second dash camera from PAPAGO that I'm reviewing, and I think this one's actually quite a bit of a jump up in terms of how it feels, the quality of it, and features of it. So I'm pretty happy with this one. This one does use an Ambarella A7L chipset and does support up to 1296p or 2560 by 1080 ultra-wide resolution. So this camera supports 64GB micro SD cards, and it also supports on-the-go USB. So if your smartphone supports on-the-go, that means you can actually plug the camera into your phone, and your phone will act as the host device, sort of like a computer, and you can view files or save files to your phone just like you would if you were to plug the memory card into your computer. So that's a pretty cool feature that most cameras don't have. Now this also has quite a few other driving features. A lot of people might not use these features because they've been in quite a few cameras, and it seems like whether or not they're useful is up for debate. But for example, it does have stuff like lane departure, fatigue warning, headlight reminder, which is actually pretty new to me for a dash camera, stop and go reminder, so if a car in front of you is stopped at a red light but suddenly goes, it'll beep at you and alert you that the car in front of you is going. So a lot of these features are more for if you're not paying attention, I suppose. One interesting one is it does have a stop sign detection, and it does beep and display a stop sign on the screen when you come up to one, which I thought was interesting, but it also gave me a lot of false alerts even when I was on the highway. So here you can see it came with a adhesive mount, which I really like. I prefer adhesive mounts over suction cup mounts. I've had them fall actually a few times. But it gives you two options, which is nice because then you could use the adhesive one in your permanent car and use the suction cup one in a temporary car. So it just uses a normal USB cable. It does come with an 8GB memory card, which I would recommend getting a new larger one because that doesn't hold a whole lot of footage. Here is the USB on the go cable. So you plug this micro USB end into your phone, and then this other cable you will plug into the camera. Now there is actually an app that you need to use for this feature, and it's only on Android, unfortunately. I only have an iPhone, so I can't test it out. So here's the actual camera. Like I mentioned, I think in terms of quality, it seems like a jump in quality from the previous model I reviewed, which was one of their lower end affordable options. You can see there HDMI out, USB and reset button. We got some menu buttons to navigate the menu. There is a lock button on the bottom left, a memory card slot, and a power button if you want to manually turn it on or off. So let's go ahead and put the memory card in. Now while I do like the build of this camera and the quality of it, I've said this before, I'm typically not a big fan of these bell-shaped cameras, and when I say bell, I mean it hangs down from a mounting plate or suction cup, so it sort of looks like the shape of a bell, and that makes it pretty visible, but it is all black, so it's not all bad either. So let's go ahead and take a look at the menu. There you can see I hit the lock button, so now it's saving this file as an event. Now one feature it has that I've never personally had a need for is taking photos. You can see there's a couple different resolutions to choose from, and with the OK button you'll snap a photo. Here is the playback mode. So you can see here there'll be several videos I've recorded. You can see I was actually testing it in my living room before, and the picture of my finger I just took. And with the emergency folder, you can see the file I just saved. So now in the main menu we got recording mode. There's 3 different modes. Motion detection is what you would assume it is. I'll talk about that later. Monitor mode takes 1 photo every second, and automatic recording is just the standard dashcam mode. Now there's a lot of different driving safety features. This is actually just the calibration. So you can see it's basically telling you how to mount it. We got the stop sign recognition, which I turned off because I was sort of getting annoyed. I was also testing the Thinkware F770, so a lot of these features, they were beeping so much, and I have multiple cameras that do that, so I turned them off. They do work though, but sometimes they give you false alerts. So volume is just, of course, the beeping or alerts of the camera. Of course, you can mute the volume if you want. Got the exposure value. I really appreciate when cameras have this feature because sometimes the brightness in your videos aren't exactly what you want, so changing the exposure can help. So here you can see multiple different resolutions. So we got that 2560 by 1080, which is an ultra wide, the 1296p, which they advertise a lot, but also the 1080p is actually high dynamic range, so the HDR mode can actually be better at night. Bump record is just if you want to have it save files due to the G sensor. Got some date and time settings, daylight savings. Screensaver is how long the screen will stay on when you're driving. I like it as short as possible. You can have the power on or off sound, on or off. Of course, the video timestamp. We got multiple different languages. So then we got a couple memory card settings. Now one nice thing is it can give you a warning at these set number of days to format your memory card, and that should prolong the life of your memory card. So that's about it for the menu. So my first impressions are pretty good on this camera. It's still got that bell design I don't really like, but since it's so small and all black, it's not a big deal to me. I wouldn't mind it in my own car long term actually. It's pretty stealthy still because of its size, while still having pretty good specs, and we'll go over the video next. So this is just the 1080p footage. Now, this is going to look pretty standard, but I would say it's definitely acceptable. Nothing mind-blowing. A lot of people are going to get tired of seeing the same similar 1080p 30 footage, because in reality for the last year or so, most decent cameras have pretty similar day quality. I will say though that when you pause the 1080p 30 footage, it does look very crystal clear. If you look at the car on the far left, it's not blurry or anything, it's very clear. So I do appreciate that. Now if most of your driving is during the day, I would recommend using the ultra wide 21:9 mode, because basically it's using more of the processing power on a narrower, wider picture, so you're not wasting processing power on the dashboard or the sky as much. So I really like these 21:9 modes. Now where the 1080p standard mode or 16:9 mode does excel in one area is the night mode. Since the 1080p standard 16:9 has HDR, it does actually have noticeably better night footage, and you'll see that here. In well-lit areas like this, it's pretty hard to discern the difference, but if you go on a really dark road like this, you do start to notice the difference. This is still the 1080p standard mode. and here's the 1080p ultra wide. So you'll notice that it sort of looks darker or yellower, and it does almost seem like a lot of the grass or the curb on the left side is darker than in the 1080p, and that would be because of the HDR of the standard 1080p mode. So if you drive around a lot at night, maybe you're better off using the 1080p, which is this footage again. Again, notice how much more realistic or accurate the color looks, where the ultra-wide mode looked a lot darker. The yellowish tint of the ultra-wide 21:9 mode is sort of off-putting to me. It does look good enough though, so if you drive a lot during the day, maybe the 21:9 mode is actually better for you. So now this camera does support motion detection like I showed before, but there is a delay between the time it should sense motion and the time it starts recording, and you'll see the jump right here. So I came out of the door and you can see it missed about 2 seconds maybe. Now I'm not totally sure on the power requirements of this camera or how much it uses if you do hardwire this and use it in motion detection while your car is off, but if you do something like that, I would highly recommend getting some sort of voltage protection like the Vico Power Plus or Blackview Power Magic Pro. Now this footage here is the standard 1080p with motion detection on. So I wanted to drive around and have motion detection on and see if I actually miss any gap or if I have any gap between clips, and I haven't noticed anything. And right there it actually went from one clip to another. There might be a frame or two missing, but it's so insignificant I feel like it's safe to say that you can actually just drive with this on motion detection and you're not going to be missing any clips or having big gaps in the clips, I should say. So while the 1296p isn't going to show up properly on YouTube, I did want to talk about it. It does use 20 megabit per second files, so they're very large. The other modes, the 1080p, standard, and ultra-wide, both are 18 megabits per second. So you're going to have larger files with the 1296p mode, and while there might be slightly more detail, I don't think it's necessarily worth it because you don't have the high dynamic range, and a lot of that processing power again is going to the dashboard or the sky like in this clip. So personally I like using either the ultra wide or the 1080p with HDR, but at this point it's going to be personal preference. So that's about all I have to say about this camera. I do think it's a pretty good camera. It costs roughly around $160 currently on Amazon. So it's a fair price. It is a name brand camera, so you're always going to be able to find some cheap Chinese cameras that might have as good of specs, but they also might not have as good of customer service or quality control. Now this was sent to me for review by PAPAGO, so I'd like to thank them for sending this out. If you're interested in this camera, you can check the description down below and I'll have a link down to Amazon. It is an affiliate link, so it does help support my channel. But you can also help support my channel by just hitting that like and subscribe button. So as usual, drive safe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.